Mike, how are you related? Again, let's just start at the beginning. How are you related to the Harbaugh family?
Well, the Jack and our mother and Jack Harbaugh's mother, the father of the two boys, were sisters. So we were first cousins and lived in Crestline, Ohio.
And so Jack and you, Jack, the father of Jim and John. Well, boy, we're going to get
Right.
into some J's here.
That's
aren't we?
right.
That's your first cousin. Y'all grew up together in Ohio, you and Jack, and then the boys came along, the coaches now, and tell us about what kind of relationship did you have with them, and how do you explain their rise to this level of success they both reached here?
Well, a good relationship with them, and they used to come back wherever Jack was coaching around the country. He always came back in the summertime, and wherever I was coaching, we came back, and Joe and Johnny and all the rest of the group. And so we would talk, and I saw them grow. And there was a point when I hired John at Pittsburgh as a graduate assistant, and I saw what everybody saw in him, a guy that works hard. And then Jack, I hired Jack 1 year or two at Pittsburgh, and then he got the Western Kentucky job. But, you know, you have a good question, Tim, about how did they make it. I think there's two really reasons I can come up with. Number one, the father and mother, Jack and Jackie, they exposed both those boys and the daughter to a lot at an early age. He was at Bowling Green in Michigan and Stanford coaching, so these boys were all over the place. They saw games, they were on the sideline, they saw practice. So I think that love Jack had for the game was inherited by the boys. And then the other story, when Jack would take the boys to school, and they may be fighting in the back and the daughter in the front seat with him, he would always stop as he got to the school, and he would say to them, I want you boys and girl to attack this day with an enthusiasm not known to mankind. And even though Jack may not have known what he was doing, he was decreeing and blessing them verbally before they went in school. And what that meant to me was when he said that, those words, he was really saying, give it your all. Go to work and be the best and really go after this thing. And then his second sentence, after he said, in an enthusiasm not known to mankind, he said a 1950s slogan that I'm well aware of and used to hear all the time from our families. He would say, and don't take any wooden nickels. And what that meant was, hey, don't take anything off anybody. If you see something wrong, correct it. And back then, we didn't have bullying, but he would have believed, he would have said, if you see somebody bullying, stop it. And so I think he spoke over those boys.
We're talking to Coach Mike Gottfried. Mike's, I guess, once a coach, always a coach, Mike.
Yeah,
I guess you'll be forever called that. But Mike's joining us from Mobile, and Mike is the first cousin of Jack Harbaugh, and Jack is the father of John and Jim. You follow me now, folks? You keeping up with the family tree here? And John and Jim are the respective coaches for the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers. Has this ever happened? Do you know, Mike, if there's ever been two brothers that coached in the NFL? Do you know
I
that?
think the Ryan brothers are in the NFL. One is the head coach, Rex, and Rob is as an assistant. He was with Dallas last year. But I don't know of any that have been head coaches.
Mike, tell us a little bit about the difference, the personality difference. They're brothers, but they're not exactly the same. Tell us a little bit about Jim versus John.
I think Jim, start with him.
The 49ers coach. He's the 49ers coach, yeah.
He played at Michigan. He was a quarterback. He was a tough competitor, and played in the pros at the Bears, Indianapolis, and I believe he ended up with Baltimore. And but he was always a guy that believed in himself. And I think that toughness that he and John both have, and Jack had it, I think it came down from the grandfather, Bill. And so Jim is an intense, tough guy, and a lot like his dad, probably more like his dad, but they're both like their dad. And John is more cerebral. And I did an article for the New York Daily News, and I said John reminds me of Bill Walsh, that's always trying to figure things out. I think in Jim's case, when he moved Colin Kaepernick in at quarterback, he probably took the attitude his father had and grandfather and said, hey, I believe this is right. I'm going to do it. I don't care what anybody thinks. And that's kind of more Jim.
I tell you what, just watching Jim Harbaugh, the coach for the 49ers on the sideline, I would not want to get on his bad side.
No.
Now, I'm sure he's a friendly person, but the guy, talk about the capital intensity with a capital I, and you just wondered how that would translate over from a college coach, and he coached at Stanford into the NFL, but evidently it's worked really well obviously it's worked really well. But, when you see these two brothers and their head coaches for NFL teams and they make the Super Bowl to face each other, that'll never happen again in our lifetime. The chances of that happening is astronomical. You have to ask yourself, how did these two guys get to be so successful? They had to have good parents. And that's what Mike is telling us about. They had a great home life. Their dad challenged them. They had good role models, good examples before them, and here they are reaching the pinnacle of success in their profession. Talking to Mike Gottfried. Mike, I will get back to the Harbaugh family in just a minute. I wanted to talk to you too about team focus, because I know a lot of our listeners have heard you talk about this in the past, but you have an organization, Team Focus. You've since leaving ESPN, but even before you left ESPN, you started Team Focus, but you've dedicated your life to this organization, Team Focus, reaching out to boys who don't have fathers across the country. And Mike, it just seems to me, you look at Jim and John, they had a great dad. They had a great role model. They had a consistent figure in front of them. And you're reaching out to these kids who don't have this in front of them, and it makes how are you doing that? I mean, because you can't substitute for a dad.
No, I think about what I said earlier, and these boys were exposed early, and we always talk about this term with the boys that we're working with around the country. Enlarge their dreams. And I always tell the story about going to, and I tell the boys, I said, I went to a basketball game when I was 11 years old, and I walked in the gym, and it was the most beautiful gym in Marion, Ohio. It was a Marion Coliseum, and it was bright. And Tim, I still remember the feeling. I walked in there and said, oh, boy, I hope to come back here someday and play. It's beautiful. And then I went into college and then coaching high school and then assistants around the country and then the head coach at 4 different schools. Well, when I was at Pittsburgh 30 years later, whenever I was in that town to recruit a player and give him a scholarship, and I asked about the Coliseum, and they said, we really fixed that up. It's probably better than you ever thought. I said, I'd like to see it. So I drove out there and walked in, and Tim, I said, this is a dump. It's the smallest place, and it's dull. And what changed? Even though it was a beautiful place still, I changed. I saw more things and saw more stadiums. And that's what we're trying to do with these young men, is take them places, sit and talk to them, affirm them, give them attention. A hug is important when you have affection. They need to see that, because once a father is gone, dies, goes to jail, whatever, they don't see an everyday person for accountability. Now, their mom will be that to them, but I was at a major college basketball game last couple weeks ago, and one of the players was having a bad time. And I asked the coach, I said, can I ask you something? I was there for 4 days. I said, does he have a father? Because I knew he didn't, because the way he acted, his body language, when he criticized him, he shrunk. And boys need a firm. Girls need a firm. They need blessing. They need that to be on them, discipline them, and all that. But sometimes a mom or a grandmother, I had this conversation with a mom last night. She said, I'm not sure my boy can go away to school or away for a job because he's been sheltered by me. And I told her, I said, my mom sheltered us, the 3 boys, after my father died, because she didn't want us to get hurt again. So she protected us, but she softened us. And so that's where a dad comes in. And a funny story of Bill Harbaugh, the grandfather of Jack. He came home from working one day, and I was at their house, and Marie, the wife, said, our son Jim, Jack's brother, has run away. So Bill took the newspaper, and he laid down on the couch, and he read the newspaper. She said, didn't you hear what I said? He ran away. Jim ran away. And he put the paper down after the 3rd time she said that. And he said, he'll be home when he gets hungry. And he had that toughness about him. And Jim did come home that night when he got hungry. But I'm sure Bill was thinking there, should I do something or should I do this? But the discipline of a father, the affirmation of a father is missing.
Mike Gottfried is on the phone with us from Mobile. Team Focus is the name of his organization, teamfocususa.org, teamfocususa.org. How many